Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me? I think your mic is on mute.
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Yes. How are you, Miss Amy?
Good, and you?
I'm wonderful. I'm sorry. I tried to start the meeting earlier, but my camera was cutting up.
I know, and it's like you ended the meeting. I'm like, what? Did I miss it? It's 8 o'clock.
No, I was sitting here fighting the camera because it did not want to work. So I had to like shut down Zoom and restart it all together, and it actually picked it up. It was cutting up on the setting. Now we should have like 5 other people joining us. So I don't know if we want to wait maybe a minute or so or just get started because I don't know. Maybe we can give them another minute or so, but
can't be late to school.
Huh?
Can't be late to school.
I know, right? Especially if it's free. Especially if it's free.
So I didn't take the SIDS class because I've already done that online. So I took the 1 o'clock one today.
Okay.
Oh.
Awesome.
And then, hey, do you have any kind of brochure that I can give my boss? Because she wants to like put a flyer in the thing. Because I think she's gonna have you come to the school.
Awesome. Yay. Okay. I can make a flyer to give to her. I do have brochures, but they're a little older. The information is still kind of good, but what I'm saying is I've added more courses. I've even have an online school. So it's just so much more information that I have to be added, but I can make her a flyer if she wants to.
Because she's a new director and she's like so busy. And I'm like, I'm going to have her type you up something like, so I can put it in her face. Like, here you go, in your hands.
That's awesome. And hey, actually, if she has time next weekend, because I know this was last minute, then she can join.
I see you have classes next weekend too.
Yep.
So, yeah, so.
Let's see. Well, we gotta go ahead and get started. And if they join, then they can just pop on in. But I'm surprised that actually it was on. I actually had 5 more people register, and then I had another 5 more people on Facebook. So I don't know where these people are.
Sleeping.
About to miss their clock hour. If they think they're gonna join us at 8:30 and still get credit,
no, ma'am.
It's not that kind of party. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, sweetheart. And we're gonna I'm going to start with the videos and then we'll go back over the information, okay?
Okay.
So let me share my screen.
So let me put this on mute.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start with this one. And although it's directed towards parents, it's very important for us as caregivers to know the things that we should be looking for. So even though she's using the word parents, this is really for all caregivers, okay?
Months of a baby's life, there are behaviours and signs that are often referred to as red flags that paediatric health professionals look for to indicate that a little one may need a little bit of help. It's important to know what these developmental red flags are because if we can identify the difficulties a little one is having early and provide treatment early, it can reduce the length of time that little one requires treatment, as well as reduce the potential impact it might have on their development. As parents, it's important to know what these red flags are because you are literally with your little one every minute of every day, so you're in the best position to notice if and when these occur. So in this video, I'm going to cover what these red flags are. If you do notice that your little one has any of these red flags, firstly, don't worry. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is something wrong. All it means is that they should go and see a health professional for a little bit of an assessment just to be sure. So let's talk about the red flags for a 3-month-old. Now remember, if your baby was born prematurely, it's based on their corrected age. So when they are 3 months, corrected age, not the date that they were born. The gross and fine motor red flags are limited head control. So if your little one isn't able to lift their head to 45 degrees or 90 degrees when they're in tummy time, and they're unable to support their head when you are holding them and providing support around their rib cage. The second one is that they are constantly turning their head to one side. So they have a strong preference to look in one direction. At 3 months of age, your little one should be able to easily turn their head from one side to the other. So if you hold a toy above their face and you go from one side to the other, they should be able to follow that moving toy. If your little one is constantly looking in the one direction, it may indicate that they have positional torticollis, which is a tightening of the neck muscle, and that's preventing them from being able to turn their head. Often, if your little one does have positional torticollis, you will notice that their head tilts to the side and their chin tucks down, and you often see this in photos. So you might want to go back and look at your little one's photos and see if they're constantly got their head in the same position. Now, if your little one does have a preference to look in one direction and is unable to turn their head in the other direction, then it is important to go get that checked out, because if it's not treated and it is positional torticollis, it can affect their body posture. It can also result in them favoring one side, and it can also lead to a flat spot developing on the back of their head. So the other red flag is a flat spot developing on the back of their head. Now, at birth, you will notice that your little one's head is a bit funny, but typically the unusual shape resolves by 6 to 8 weeks. But if you notice after this point in time that your little one does have a flat spot developing on the back of their head, it's important to go to a pediatric physiotherapist who can provide some advice on some positioning and assess if.
In the child care center, let me stop the share really quick and just add on. Now, that's something that we definitely see a lot. The flatheads in the back, generally, it could say that something else is going on, but more than likely what is taking place is that that child is not getting enough tummy time. Okay, most of the time, that child is just laying back on the back of their head, and that does make them have a flattened head. Not only does it make them have a flattened head, but if they're constantly on their back and not on their stomach while they're awake, because we want to lay them on their back while they're asleep. But when they are awake, we definitely want them to be up on their stomach, moving around so they can learn how to become mobile and reach for things. A lot of times, parents that are just unaware of the ramifications that it can cause. Not only that, caregivers or young babysitters, they'll keep the baby on the back of their head, and it will cause that flattening. And the only way to reverse that is to you want to take them to the pediatrician or whatever. However, you definitely want to go ahead and make sure they start getting a lot of tummy time. So flathead is the indicator of two things. It either could be something going on, but more than likely it's what the provider or the parent is doing. So let me start the video back up. Okay.
An underlying reason why that flat spot is developing. It's also really important to rule out craniosynostosis, which is the early closures of the sutures in the skull, and this can lead to the skull developing an unusual shape, which can then restrict skull growth, and that can impact the developing brain. The next thing you want to look out for is decreased movement or stiffness on one side of the body or in one arm or leg. So typically at 0 to 3 months of age, your little one will be able to use both hands freely. So they'll be reaching out with both hands. They'll also be kicking with both feet. And at 3 months of age, they'll be able to turn their head in both directions. If you notice that your little one has increased stiffness in a leg or an arm, or they're not able to move one side of the body, or they have a strong hand preference, then it is an indication that you need to go in and check in with their pediatrician to see if there's a reason for that. The next thing you want to look at is your little one's hand. So at 3 months of age, we want those hands to be open and that thumb to be out. So if you notice that your little one's hand is fisted and that thumb is still resting inside their palm, then you definitely want to go in and see a pediatric occupational therapist to see if there's ways that you can get that thumb out, because if that thumb and that hand doesn't open, it's going to be hard for them to start to grab and play with toys, which they typically do at 4 months of age.
Now, remember, your job as a caregiver, these are things that you want to take note of in case you have children as well. However, your job as a caregiver is to basically document what you're seeing so you could have that conversation with the director, and the director will be able to have that conversation with the parent. You know, I know that, you know, a lot of times as caregivers, we see it firsthand and we want to express what's going on with the parents, but parents take things the wrong way. You don't want to put yourself in that position. You definitely just want to bring whatever delay that you are noticing and that you are seeing to the director, okay? Show whatever documentation or show an example of what the baby is or the child is or is not doing, and let that director have that conversation. Now, if you are the director, then we are going to go over some things for you to do to help. And I'm also so you'll know how to prepare yourself to speak to the parent. But just as caregivers, you know, I don't want you to put yourself in a vulnerable situation, because parents get upset when they hear that there may be something wrong with their child. They don't want to hear that from us. So if they're hearing it from the director, then I think it'll be received a little better.
Now, before we cover the social and communication red flags, make sure you click on the free PDF document in the description box below, as this will give you valuable peace of mind, because you'll know when to be expecting skills and when to be concerned. So the social and communication red flags are if your little one does not cry when they are uncomfortable or hungry. So babies cry to communicate with you what they want and need. They can't yet use words, but they are very efficient at crying. So if your little one isn't indicating to you that they are hungry or uncomfortable by crying, then that is a potential red flag. The next red flag is if the little one doesn't notice or respond to loud noises. So newborns respond to loud noises multiple ways. They might go quiet, they might look for that noise by moving their eyes, and then when they're able to, moving their head in the direction of that noise. They might smile, or they might search for you when you start talking. They also respond to loud noises by startling, and that is when they throw back their hands, legs, and their head, and then bring them back into the middle of their body and start to cry. If you notice that your little one isn't responding to noise, then it is definitely a time to go and get their hearing looked at. The next red flag is if the little one at 3 months of age does not look at the carer. So by 3 months of age, you should be able to have a little one look at the carer and sustain that eye contact, and they will also smile or coo in response to that interaction. So that also leads me on to my next red flag, which is if your little one is not smiling or cooing by 3 months of age. In regards to a 0 to 3 months old vision, there is 2 things that we want to check. Firstly, we want to make sure that the 3-month-old is able to track a moving toy. So when they're lying on their back, they should be able to follow a toy from one side of their body all the way over to the other side by following it with their eyes and their head. The next thing you want to look out for is to see if the little one has an eye that is constantly turning in or out. So newborns will have eyes that fleetingly appear cross-eyed, but it shouldn't be constant. If it is, it is an indication that they need to go and get their vision assessed. Feeding red flags are that your little one is unable to latch while nursing or bottle feeding. They're losing lots of liquid out the side of their mouth when they're trying to feed, or they're appearing distressed when they are feeding. In addition to knowing what the red flags are, it is extremely helpful for a new parent to know how a newborn communicates, and that is by using newborn cues. So if you want to help build a strong foundational relationship with your little one, then make sure you check out this video. Also, if you want to know some unusual behaviors that you're going to see in your newborn that are developed.
Okay. So basically, it's very important for you to know those what to look out for, because you need to know what is normal or not. You are actually with the children more so than the parent on a lot of occasions, especially during the week. I know some children in daycare, they're dropped off at 6:30 in the morning. Parent don't come back to get them until 6. So it's very important that you notice these development delays, because if a child is only with their parents so much, if they are in daycare, then all of the time that you're spending with them, you should be taking note of what you see. If a parent is dropping their child off in the morning, as soon as it's time to wake up and go to work, and then by the time they get them, they're bathing them, feeding them, and putting them back to bed, then they're not really going to be able to notice these particular red flags and referrals. Okay, so now the next video that we're going to watch is actually going to be a side-by-side. So we're going to have 2 videos. One is of a 2-month-old, and it's going to show you what is normal and what is abnormal. And then the one following that is going to be of a 6-month-old, showing you what is normal and what is abnormal. And then we'll actually get into the lecture part of the content, okay? So out of here. And you guys, pathways.org, they have a lot of good information. So even outside of this particular training, if there's any like developmental information you want to know, that's usually my little go-to. I love them. They have a lot of vital information that would be very beneficial to you guys.
2-month-old typical atypical motor development side by side. In this video, you will see a typically developing baby and an atypically developing baby in 8 different positions. Use this to help recognize early motor delays. Please remember to adjust for prematurity. Position 1, supine, head. The typically developing baby on the left maintains his head in midline for brief periods, while the atypically developing baby on the right has a more predominance of head turning to one side and strong ATNR, asymmetrical tonic neck reflex. Visual tracking. Notice the typically developing baby locates and visually tracks objects horizontally. The atypically developing baby can locate the object but has difficulty visually tracking and only tracks objects to midline. Extremities. See how the infant on the left begins to show extremity anti-gravity movements and reciprocal kicking, while the atypically developing baby on the right has long periods of inactivity, few anti-gravity movements, and less reciprocal kicking. Position 2, sideline, transition. The baby on the left shows lateral head righting and follow-through into rolling with head lifted into prone. Baby on the right can remain in sideline without rolling by flexing his hips and knees, increasing his base of support. Trunk control. The baby on the left is able to switch from using abdominals during the roll to neck and back extensors as he completes the roll. The baby on the right is in a position that doesn't require him to work as hard against gravity, so in this position, he looks more symmetrical. Movement. In this position, the typically developing baby demonstrates an integration of major muscle groups. The atypically developing baby on the right looks more competent in this position. Therefore, it is important to observe in more than one position. Position 3, prone, head lifting. The typically developing baby is able to lift 45 degrees while extending through the upper thoracic spine. Baby on the right still has a newborn posture. He shifts his weight forward towards his head, making it harder to lift. head and upper trunk. Baby on the left's upper body is free to lift his head and upper trunk off the surface. Note that the changes in leg position on the atypically developing baby allow him to begin developing head and trunk control. Hip position. Watch baby on the left moving out of flexed into flexed and adducted position, while baby on the right remains in flexed in abducted posture. Movement. Notice the baby on the left is doing little weight shifts and is able to counteract with his abdominals to balance while increasing shoulder girdle strength. Baby on the right strategy is to extend and push up on his legs. It doesn't assist him in lifting his head and pushing up on his arms. Position 4. Pull to sit. Head. The typically developing baby demonstrates head lag, expected at this age. He sustains midline head control when upright. The atypically developing baby demonstrates head lag throughout the maneuver and poor head control when upright. Upright. Baby on the left is upright. He has good extension through the cervical and upper thoracic spine. Baby on the right has little activity in the cervical spine and rounding of thoracic and lumbar spine. Upper extremities. The typically developing baby uses shoulder elevation and elbow flexion to assist in the maneuver. The atypical developing baby is not able to use his shoulder girdle to stabilize upper trunk during the maneuver. Position 5. Sitting. Head. Baby on the left's head is aligned with his ear, directly over his shoulder. Baby on the right is unable to achieve and sustain head lifting in an upright position. Posture. The typically developing baby has good activity of the neck extensors. He is able to hold and sustain posture with assistance. The atypically developing baby needs more support to sustain a sitting posture. Movement. We don't see a lot of head turning in this position for the baby on the left, but this is typical of this age. Baby on the right's arms are inactive because he lacks shoulder girdle strength. Position 6. Horizontal suspension. Anti-gravity extension. In this position, the typically developing baby's muscles of the neck and trunk can sustain this posture against gravity. We can see in this position the atypically developing baby is unable to lift his head or activate his neck and upper thoracic extensors. Extremities. The typically developing baby recruits muscles in the shoulder girdle to augment the thoracic extension. The atypically developing baby moves his arms and legs to stabilize his trunk, which is a non-productive strategy. Position 7. Protective extension. Tilting forward. When we tilt the typically developing baby forward towards the surface, he sustains and increases the head and neck extension. As the atypically developing baby on the right tips forward towards the surface, he is unable to lift his head and extend his trunk. Progression. The typically developing baby on the left is on track to demonstrating fundamental control in this position by 6 months. Note that if the atypically developing baby does not get early therapy to develop head and trunk strength, it is unlikely he will do this position by 6 months. Position 8. Standing. Posture. When placed in supported standing, we see the typically developing baby has good vertical alignment from head through trunk and feet. Notice the atypically developing baby on the right sustains pseudo-extension when provided maximum support. Upper body. Note that the typically developing baby uses shoulder elevation, and his upper extremities are held close to his body to assist and sustain this posture, while the atypically developing baby has little or no intermittent muscle activity to maintain standing. Weight bearing. The typically developing baby sustains weight on lower extremities with trunk support, while the atypically developing baby collapses into flexion when the examiner tries to let him take weight on his feet.
All right. So yeah, pathways definitely have a lot of good information. So now we're actually going to look at the baby that's 6 months. And their development side by side.
Atypical motor development side by side. In this video, you will see a typically developing baby and an atypically developing baby in 8 different positions. Use this to help recognize early motor delays. Please remember to adjust for prematurity. Position 1, supine. Presented a toy. The typically developing baby on the left reaches, grasps, transfers, and explores toy in a well-coordinated motion, while the atypically developing baby on the right is visually interested in the toy. He's unable to reach, grasp, or play in this position, as expected at this age. Extremities. Baby on the left is able to symmetrically lift upper and lower extremities against gravity and bring hands to his feet. Atypically developing baby on the right rarely demonstrates anti-gravity movement. Even with assistance, he briefly holds knees towards chest. Body. Baby on the left has increased anti-gravity control of his trunk muscles, while the atypically developing baby has improved ability to hold head and trunk in midline. He has little abdominal activity. Position 2. Sideline. Transition. Watch the typically developing baby visually follow the toy. He reaches, then rolls independently, initiating movement with his lower extremities, while the atypically developing baby visually engages with the toy, but his arms rest in a passive wide abduction position, and shoulder extension prevents rolling. Movement. Notice the typically developing baby chooses not to stay in sideline, as he is too interested in playing. Baby on the right's unbalanced neck, shoulder, and back extension prevents forward movement of the head and arm to assist rolling to his side. Position 3. Prone, head and arms. See how the typically developing baby on the left is able to be on extended arms, supporting weight while turning head to follow a toy, while the baby on the right has his elbows behind the shoulders, making it very difficult to use upper extremities to assist in head and trunk lifting. Upper extremities. Watch the typically developing baby show emerging upper extremity control and weight shifting for reaching, grasping, and playing. Notice the baby on the right has decreased upper extremity stability, preventing weight shifts towards the pelvis, which is necessary for freedom of upper extremities. Lower extremities. Pivoting is seen by the typically developing baby. He has increased extension down to the lumbar spine and lower extremities. While baby on the right is doing some lower extremity kicking, he does not possess the stability required for upper extremity play. Play. Observe how the baby on the left participates in varied play schemes of banging, turning, mouthing, transferring, and shows a palmar grasp with increased digital participation. Yet baby on the right is challenged when in the prone position, without adequate stability, unable to use vision or hands to explore the environment. Position 4. Pull to sit. Head. Typically developing baby is actively flexing neck forward and lifting head from support surface to assist in the maneuver, while the atypically developing baby is minimally able to assist in the maneuver. Note his complete head lag until upright and only holds it up briefly in midline. Upper extremities. Baby on the left uses upper extremities and abdominals to assist and show good symmetry throughout the maneuver. For the baby on the right, you do not see him assisting with upper extremity pulling, which is expected by 6 months old. Position 5. Sitting. Head. At 6 months, the typically developing baby has stable head and trunk control with strong extension through the thoracic spine. As we saw at 2 and 4 months, the atypically developing baby is struggling to maintain his head upright and in midline, even when supported. Stability. The typically developing baby is able to reach with one arm at a time. His wide base of support gives him greater stability in his lower extremities. The baby on the right has poor trunk extension and does not have a solid balance of trunk flexor and extensor muscles to stabilize him. Reaching. The typically developing baby on the left is able to lean forward, reach, and then right his trunk over his pelvis to attain the upright sitting posture. Notice how the atypically developing baby must still be supported high in the chest for stability. His upper extremities come down to the sides and reaching is not observed. Position 6. Horizontal suspension. Extension. The typically developing baby now demonstrates full sustained extension in the neck and upper thoracic spine, which continues down through his hips and legs, while the atypically developing baby is only briefly able to lift head symmetrically in midline and extend through the upper thoracic spine and hips. Position 7. Protective extension. Tilting forward. Protective extension is easily and quickly elicited as the typically developing baby brings arms forward. During this move, the atypically developing child does not bring his upper extremities forward to the surface to protect himself. Upper extremity response. Notice the typically developing baby props immediately on one upper extremity and actively reaches for a toy in front of him with the other. For the atypically developing baby, decreased anti-gravity neck and trunk strength makes it hard to sustain head and trunk extension needed for arms to come forward. Position 8. Standing. Head. Typically developing baby is able to turn his head freely and look around. For the atypically developing baby, as we have seen in nearly all the anti-gravity positions, head and trunk control are still a challenge. He lacks necessary anti-gravity control. Alignment. The typically developing baby's hips are still slightly flexed and a bit behind his shoulders. Note his upper extremities are assisting, as evidenced by the strong upper thoracic extension. Atypically developing baby is unable to align his head, trunk, hips, knees, and feet in the vertical. Weight bearing. Watch how the typically developing baby on the left demonstrates sustained weight bearing on extended lower extremities. Atypically developing baby on the right does not initiate or sustain weight bearing, which makes it impossible to develop control in standing.
All right. Questions, any concerns, anything? Everybody good to go? Okay. All right, so now we're going to get into the content. The objectives of this particular material is to learn typical milestones in children, to learn red flags and concerning behaviors, and also to learn how to prepare a conversation to express concerns with parents. As the rest of my word there, I don't know what happened. There, oh my gosh. Okay, let's get started.
Learning takes place throughout our lives, beginning at birth. Children learn and grow physically, socially, and cognitively. These areas of growth in children's general health are important when monitoring overall development. While most children develop on a similar path, we must be aware of key indicators or signals that a child may not be moving along the expected path of development. Typical milestones: birth to 8 months. Will show preference for the face, smell, and sound of a familiar person.
So this is the typical milestones from birth to 8 months. This is what you should see. If you do not see these things, this may be an indicator that something is going on, and it's time to start documenting what you're seeing, okay?
Will show preference for the face, smell, and sound of a familiar person. Will smile and make eye contact as social interaction. May observe own hand, grasp own hand. Reaches for and grabs toys. Babbles. Smiles at self in the mirror. Sits with support. 12 months to 18 months. Uses a few gestures, one after another, to get needs met. Feeds themselves with finger foods. Knocks 2 blocks together. Turns to the person speaking when his/her name is called. Plays peekaboo, patty cake, or other social games. Stands alone, takes steps, walks with one hand held. 18 months to 3 years. Enjoys being read to. Follows simple commands without gestures. Points to simple body parts. Begins to use pronouns, such as mine. Speaks in 2 to 3 word sentences. Shows increased fearfulness. Expresses emotions with increasing control. Red flags. No big smiles by 6 months. No back and forth sharing by 9 months. No babbling by 12 months. No back and forth gestures by 12 months. No words by 16 months. No 2-word, meaningful phrases by 24 months. Any loss of speech, babbling, or social skills at any age. Concerning behaviors.
And you have to be mindful of that, because some kids will backtrack and they will stop doing things that they were previously able to do. And that definitely indicates that that child may be experiencing some kind of stress, or could have had some kind of damage done to them.
Concerning behaviors. Little or no eye contact. No response to name. Unusual motor behaviors or motor planning. Rigidity and/or getting stuck on certain activities. Over or underreactive sensory input. Overarousal and regulatory issues. Through careful observation and recording for all children in childcare programs, you can identify early developmental concerns about a child and make referrals for screening or assessment recommendations to the parent.
Okay, now remember,
observation and
remember we talked about that. You definitely want to document the things that you are seeing, okay, or the things that you should be seeing that you are not seeing. And all you're going to do is speak to the director, or if you are the director, you're going to speak to the parent about getting screened or assessed. And that's going to happen at the doctor, at the physician. So that should actually be able to save you a whole bunch of hard conversations. When you're speaking with the parent, you shouldn't be trying to diagnose them. Dude, don't try to tell the parent, oh, I think your child has this, or oh, I think your child has that. When you are speaking with these parents, you simply want to tell them what you do notice, what you don't notice, that there may be a concern and you have the best interest for their child and their child's growth and development. And doing so, you want to recommend that they get assessed, and you want to provide them with resources. Please do not try to become a doctor. Please don't do it, okay? Because you're going to offend the parents. And a lot of times we may or may not be wrong. So we want to leave that to the professionals that's trained to do so.
Observation and documentation. Choose a format that works for you. Observe the child involved in a variety of activities.
Now that's very important. You don't want to observe them in just doing one thing. Okay, because some kids are better at doing some things than others. You have to have a healthy wealth of knowledge of what you're talking about. So you want to have been to observe that particular child doing multiple things, okay?
Observe the child over an extended period of time. Record the time of day, day of week, and the activity the child is engaged in during the observation. Families and staff experience a range of emotions when they first suspect that a child may have a developmental concern. Sharing information with parents. Choose a private place to talk. Have documentation that is.
That's very important. Choosing a private place to talk. You should not be speaking about this child delays in the classroom. Like, even if you are the director and you're coming to meet that parent, no, you need to pull that parent into your office. Speak to that parent privately. This should not be taking place in front of anyone else. That parent needs the confidence and the security of knowing that you are really just trying to do what's best for their child, because you having that particular conversation in public is embarrassing to them, and it may even come off as hurtful and inconsiderate. So you always want to choose a private place to have that conversation. Make sure you have the documentation.
Have documentation that is objective.
Okay, and basically objective meaning you're not, in your documentation, you're not saying, I think he's doing this, or I think he's doing that. Objective, the observation, or is basically, John is not babbling and he's 5 months, not 5 months old, 8 months old, 10 months old. Okay, by the time that they should actually be doing that. You just want to be very matter of fact about it. You don't want to put any type of emotions in your documentation, because it's going to make you come off biased.
Consider cultural differences.
You need to consider cultural differences as well. Some things that we may or may not do in our cultures could cause delays in some of our kids, or even advancements in some of our kids. But as far as the cultural differences, that has a lot to do with how you are communicating with the parent. Okay, you don't want to come off offensive in any manner, especially when you're talking about something that is so sensitive. It's an extremely sensitive subject.
Be respectful. Have referral resources ready to share.
That is the very key of the whole situation. You do not speak to someone about their child without offering them information to help. So you need to have resources available, and I'm going to show you where you need to go to obtain that. So don't worry about that. But that's just very important. Don't just tell a parent, something wrong with your kid. You need to go, no, it's resources you can give the parent so you can help them go through this difficult time. Especially you're supposed to care for the kids that you're keeping. So if you honestly have feelings for them and you're a very good caregiver, you definitely want to help them in any way you can.
Do not diagnose.
I told y'all that don't diagnose. Don't tell somebody what you think their child has. Even if you may notice, oh, this child has ADHD. You see the signs, you've been trained on it. Maybe one of my trainers, we're doing the ADHD and ADHD training next weekend. But even if you have had informal training on it, it's not a good idea to try to diagnose. You leave all of that to the healthcare professionals.
Observation and documentation. If you are routinely observing and recording developmental children in your program, you may find at times that a child has red flags in their developmental progress, and it is time to talk to his or her parents about your concerns. This is often the most challenging conversation that early childhood providers anticipate having with families. While it can be a difficult conversation, the following tips and strategies should help alleviate some of the tension and help ease the provider into setting up the appropriate situation for this important dialogue. Preparing for a conversation. Perhaps the most important step to take into consideration when sharing concerns with families, after your objective observation and recording of a child's development, is preparing for the conversation with the family. To begin first, make some objective notes about the challenges you believe the child is having, in addition to your observation forms. This will help you stay on task as you are talking to the family. Be specific about what you have been observing and write it down. Next, request a specific time to talk to the family, preferably when you will both have time to spend talking and not feel rushed to get going. This should not take place at drop-off or pick-up time, if possible, unless the parent has time to stay longer and you have other staff who can attend to the children while you go to a conference room. Think about any cultural differences that may exist and take those differences into consideration before the conversation. Are these differences impacting the development? What questions do you need to ask the family about their culture and the child's developmental needs? Are there cultural issues around which parents should be at the conference with you? All these considerations will be very important to the success of the time you spend together. As a next step, have the numbers readily available of the assessment resources in your community. It is one thing to tell a family where they should go for a referral. Giving them the actual numbers and even the name of the person they should talk to will make it even easier for them to follow through with a difficult call. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, spend a few moments gathering your thoughts before the conversation with the family and calm your nerves. What you are doing is important for the child's welfare, and try to keep that in mind. Expressing your concerns. The next step is expressing your concerns in the actual conference with the family. There are several ways to help make this go a bit smoother for all concerned. It's very important that the setting be as private and comfortable as possible. Also, assure the family that the discussion you are having will remain confidential. This is very important as a family may have fears that if information gets out about their child, she will be treated differently or even expelled from the program. Your assurances will help allay some of their fears from the onset. As you begin to share information, provide your documentation with specific, non-judgmental examples of what you have observed and recorded. Give the parents plenty of time to ask you questions. Be respectful at all times. It is difficult for a parent to hear that their child may have a developmental concern. Understand their questions and comments in the context of fear and anxiety. For assistance referring children and families in Texas, please visit or.
Okay, so this is a website you can visit down here if you want to refer. Or
for assistance referring children and families in.
I guess the link isn't working because it's on the reading program. But this right here is where you can go to get referring information for children and families that need assistance. This is also another one down here. This down here is actually from the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, okay? So they actually have an early childhood intervention services, and you can refer a child up to, or have the parent refer their child for up to 36 months. So that's up to the age of 3. So if you need to know that information, you can contact your ECI program near you, okay? And they will let you know what services can be provided. So when you're speaking with the parent, you want to come with this information already taken care of to a certain extent. Now, if you don't know the ECI program in your area, there are 3 ways to find it. You can go to the ECI program search, and remember, this is at this at the Health and Human Services. This is Texas governmental information. All right, they're going to have a place where you can type in the search ECI program, enter your zip code, and it'll bring it up to it'll bring up the one that's closest to you. If you don't have access to the internet, or that seems like too much for you to do, you can always call the Health and Human Services Ombudsman, and this is their number, all right? And they do have multiple languages, okay? Once you call them, you're going to put in your zip code, and then they're going to connect you to what you need to be connected to. Okay. You can also submit a request online as well. So there are 3 different ways. So these are very important when it comes to making a referral. And this is for healthcare individuals down here. So these are the 3 ways that you can actually, or this is the information that you can give to the parent, but you definitely want to make sure you go with resources for them and just let them know that they need to speak with their child's physician. Again, please never, ever, ever try to be the doctor, okay? All right, now to get your certificate, I need to see your beautiful faces. So if you don't have your camera on, can you cut your camera on? I don't know if I'm talking to a wall. Just to make sure. Hey, gorgeous ladies, good morning and good morning. Good morning. Okay.
Good morning. It's kind of dark in here.
It's okay. Hey, I saw you though. I saw you. I saw you briefly. As long as I see your face. Okay, so the last part of this training.
Good morning.
Good morning, sweetheart. Okay, the last part of this particular training is a Kahoot. So I hope you guys have your phones out ready. Is there any way that you guys are able to participate in the Kahoot? You can use it on your phone. So let me bring it up, okay, and I'll show you what needs to be done. And then we'll be done with this. So Kahoot is basically our online game, okay? So let's start the game. We're gonna do a live session. So if you have a phone or another device, well, you'll be able to actually, and some people can do the Kahoot on the same device, but it's kind of hard to flip back and forth. Okay, we're gonna go to classic mode. And it's only 5 questions, so it shouldn't take long. All right, so to join, I want you guys to go to, you can open up another tab on your computer or on your phone, and you can go to, either you can scan this if you can see it, you can scan that, or you can go to www.kahoot.it. Once you access it, put in this pin and it'll bring you into the game. And if anyone have trouble with that, let me know. And you gotta unmute your mic to talk to me because I can't hear you, just in case you wanna say something. Okay, Amy girl, I see you. All right, Tia, I see you. Miss Maria, are you able to join, or are you having difficulty?
No, working on it.
Okay. I'm gonna wait for you. Because I know sometimes it's hard for some people to get on. There you go. Okay, let's get started. It would want to load. Let me see. In a second. Okay, there we go. Okay, red flags. It's only 5 questions, you guys. So, a milestone for an infant from birth to 8 months is pointing at simple body point. body parts. True or false? Do you think by the age of 8 months or birth, they should be able to point to their eyes, nose, or mouth? If you say, hey, where's your nose? Where's your lips? True or false? That's false. That's actually between, they're able to do that between 18 to 36 months, okay? So that was a trick question. All right, T, I see you, girl, come through. All right, next question. By the age of 12 to 18 months, a child should be able to stand alone or start taking steps. Is that true or false? From 12 to 18 months, a child should be able to stand up by themselves and or start taking steps. True or false? By 12 to 18 months, should they be able to do that? That's right. They should. Some kids actually start earlier. My son started walking right at 10 months, like literally at 10 months. So, and I think I started at 9 months. So yes, by then, at the minimum by 18 months. Now, if they haven't started walking or trying to walk by 18 months, then there's definitely an issue there. It could mean that they need braces or something, okay? But you don't diagnose that, I'm just telling you. Okay. All right, a milestone for an infant from 12 months to 18 months is sitting with support. Or should they do it earlier or later? Sitting with support. That's the milestone of a 12 to 18 month. False, that's right. They should have been able to do that a long time ago. A long time ago. Sitting up with support should happen before 8 months. They definitely shouldn't need help sitting up between 12 and 18 months. Okay, let's see. Okay. A milestone for a child 18 months to 3 years old is being able to express emotions with increasing control. So, are they able to express their emotions between 18 months and 3 years old? True or false? That's right. That's right. And hey, actually, by the time they're 3, a lot of them are talking and they showing a lot of emotions. They trying to tell us what to do. Okay. All right, the last one. Concerning behaviors are a child having little to no eye contact or no response to their name. So is that concerning or is it not? If they are not making eye contact with you, and if they, that's right, that is a concern, because even when they're infants, they should be able to respond to their name being called. Okay, Miss Tia, I see you. Congratulations, ladies. Now, since you got first and you all did great, Okay, since you, Miss Tia, got first on the game, I'm going to give you access to another class for free. So I'll send it to your email, okay?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. So yes, I try to give rewards now. When we're normally in person, I actually give out physical awards like gel pens, little games for your kids, like color cards, reading cards, or math cards, or different little activities or puzzles. But since it's online, that's the best I can do is try to hook you up with another course. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Because we've reached the end of the class. Anyone? No? Okay. If you have what I am gonna do is, would anybody like a copy of the written material?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Everybody, you want one, Miss Amy? Yes. Okay. So,
yes, I do.
Okay, so with the email that you guys sent me, I'm going to send you a certificate and I'm going to send you a PDF of the information that we covered today, okay?
Okay.
All right, beautiful ladies, I enjoyed having you. I'm having another training next week. That's going to be free. It's at same time, 8 a.m. Over understanding ADD and ADHD, which is the same thing. It's just, updated terminology. So if you guys want to join us for another free training and get your clock hour, then join me next Saturday, okay? Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You too. Bye, you guys.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye now.